So in this demonstration, we will be doing the modified stick figure or the armature of this crawling figure. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find out the skeleton, or we're going to figure out where those shoulder points, the pelvic area points, and all of the knees, the elbows, everything in this figure. Now, as was mentioned, ideally, you should be able to figure that out just by looking and then reflecting that on paper. But for the purposes of our demo, we're going to do it, we're going to be indicating it right here. So we got the head, this is the side view, then we have the torso going that way. Here the leg begins there, go down, and we have the foot there. And here's the other one. Shoulder line goes there, and then the other arm goes right there. Now when you go to the front view, notice that the arms are slightly bent outward. So we have to take note of that when we do our armature. Hand goes there. And also notice that when you're drawing a figure in this view, the head overlaps the top of the body or the shoulder area. So that's where the shoulder line is. And from the back, it's pretty simple. You can also do, we have that pelvis area coming here because that's where the leg starts, and the leg slightly moves upward, outward, and the other leg is essentially going straight towards the back. So now this is a different situation compared to the other examples, because right now the figure is crawling, it is not standing. So when we do our center line, the center line is not really, this center line is not for the figure, but it just indicates the verticalness. This will help us establish that vertical area for our figure. So I'm going to make this figure move this way. So what I can do is I can establish some measurements when it comes to proportions. So I'm going to focus on how high that leg is compared to the torso. So you can see that there is this vertical line here and that horizontal line here. And I'm going to establish just how long that is. So for instance, I'm going to use this axis for the body. The body is like horizontal this way, it goes horizontal. And then I'm going to estimate now how long that is compared to this leg. So if the leg is that high compared to the body, then maybe this way. We can actually tilt the body a little more because it's not completely horizontal, it's slightly going this way. So I'm just going to raise that a bit right here. Of course, you might notice that this is not where that leg is supposed to go because we have that line that indicates the pelvic area. So I'm just going to eyeball that. This is now the other axis. I'm going to follow that. You don't want to make it too wide, because if you make it too wide, then you'll end up with a very wide body. So since I have my 2 points right here, I'm going to bring this down. And as we've seen, this leg moves a bit outward, so I'm not going to do this vertically. I'm just going to move it outward a bit. And then just estimate upper leg is the same as the lower leg, and I'm just going to do a foot right there. Now, if you're going to notice the alignments, the heel is about, it's across this knee joint. So if this is the heel, and I need that knee joint to be across that, I'm now going to be using the axis. So this is the line where that knee, with this other knee, is supposed to go. And then I can just estimate now the distance is this and the distance is that. So that means the other knee joint goes there. Looks pretty confusing, but if you do those estimations correctly, just to double check, the rear leg is supposed to go straight this way. It's supposed to go straight this way, and that's why I have this. And I just need to indicate how far this joint is, and that joint is supposed to be across the heel of the other leg. So I'll use that axis to find where that intersection is directly across. And then I can now move my leg right there. And that's the other leg. Now, some of you might have noticed that the knee is actually higher than the ground. If you notice that, plus points for you. So that means this knee has to be a little higher. But we'll not do that right now because it will intersect with this pelvis area and it's going to add more confusion. Okay, so now we have that. We're now going to go for the shoulders. So, given this is our torso, I'm just going to take these 2 points of the pelvis, move it up, and I'm going to do that shoulder. This is now where the shoulder is supposed to be. And then we have these 2 arms, and I'm going to eyeball that. First, to establish how far now do I want the hands to be. So the hands are a little wider. And they move forward. And the head sits right there. And there you go. So if we can darken this a bit, this is now our armature or modified stick figure for our crawling friend. And of course, this part now of the shoulder cannot be seen because it's obstructed by the head. Let's now work on another figure. So here we have our figure who's kind of kneeling down and he's pointing to the side. So you might notice that from the front side, the torso is not straight. He's actually leaning more towards the left. And the back is slightly bent. And this leg actually moves outward. It's not going straight towards us. This one is more or less going straight towards us, although it's moving a bit towards the middle. This one is definitely moving outward, and you can see that's indicated by the foot. The foot is also going outward. So let's try that with, let's not look at the, I'm not going to indicate the all our landmarks. I'm just going to do this directly with our axes. So I want now the figure to face this way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to estimate heights. Because this figure is not standing, so I won't be doing the 5 head height. I'm just going to be eyeballing things based on what I'm seeing here. So you can see that around the waist area, the waist is around 1/2. So if we divide the figure in two, then that's the 1/2 right there. So I'm just going to start with that. I'm going to do the 1/2. So I know this is half of the body. I'm going to go a bit down to find that pelvic area. Now the pelvic area appears to be on the side, and it appears to be slanted. We will be dealing with that in a while. I just want to establish where that height is. So this is the height, assuming, of the pelvis, and the shoulders are horizontal, so that's fairly easy. If this is the torso, the middle of the torso, I'm gonna do that horizontal line right there. Okay, I'm doing this more longer because I'm not really quite sure yet where this placement is going to be. So to make things easier, we can just start with where the pelvis area is, and then we're going to slant towards the left in this angle. So this is that point along this line, and I'm going to slant that right there. So this is now the angle of that body, and I can now place the head. And then estimate now that shoulder width, since the shoulders are horizontal. And you might notice that now this upper arm is moving straight towards, it's directly towards the right. In this case, the upper arm is directly moving towards us. We don't really see much of that upper arm, so it's moving more or less towards us. So this is more or less the angle that we're looking at of that, around that. Okay, so I'm just going to do a straight across and then bring it a little forward, just a bit. And this arm is moving more forward than the upper arm. So I'm just going to go just slightly this way. Shoulder right there. So we've got this part now down. Now the pelvis area is not exactly horizontal, it's tilting just a bit right there. So in this case, if the horizontal is here, I'm just going to tilt it just a bit there. And just to double check, that's about the width of that. Then for the knee, it's a little raised. So I'm just going to go there. Now I'm using this now as my reference. This line going here just to make sure that it is higher than the ground. And then bring that horizontally. And now I have the foot, which is aligned with more or less the torso. There it is. Then right here, this leg moves forward and outward. So if it's moving forward, then we'll follow this axis going here, but we have to move it outward. So I'm just going to eyeball that right now. If this is the center, so this is the distance right there. That's the distance I'm looking at. So if this is the center and this is the distance, more or less, I'm just going to go up a bit. And it's a bit forward. So it's more or less like that. Now it looks weird from this vantage point, but I'm going to check. Pelvis is right here. It's that height. So that's that height. And it's more or less horizontal here. So we'll follow that axis to go horizontal. And then the foot is a little forward. So if that's forward, yes, it's right there. That's that foot. And then it moves a little back. And then this arm just goes a little outward towards the center. That's around there. And moves over that knee. It moves right here, inward. Sorry about that. It moves inward that way. And the hand actually goes right there. So these are the things that can cause confusion. If you have a hard time doing it in this way, one thing that you can do is to try it from another direction and see what happens. Your objective ultimately is, once you figure out how to do things in one angle, then it becomes relatively easier, not saying it'll be easy, but it will be relatively easier for you to figure out another angle. And ultimately, that's the whole goal of character construction. Find out the rules so that you can make that armature, that modified stick figure, and once you find out that system, then you try to do it from another angle until you've solidified that figure in 3D space.